Hello everyone and welcome to this presentation entitled AR David, the Augmented Reality Display Artifact Video Dataset. My name is Alex Shapiro, I'm a research scientist at Meta, and this work is a collaboration between Meta and the University of Cambridge. We also thank the SIGGRAPH 2024 Committee for the Best Paper Award honorable mention that we've received. Today we're going to talk about optical see-through augmented reality, and an example of that is shown here, which is Orion, Meta's first true AR glasses. These are glasses that are transparent so you can see the world through them, but they also have an optical combiner element like a waveguide that guides light into the user's eye and shows a virtual image to them as shown on the right. And the question we're interested in is how to build quality metrics for AR content for the different environments people might be using them in. The reason why we might be interested in this is because designing a display like this has many dimensions. These could include optics, the graphics pipeline, things about the display, and so on, and each one includes decisions that would try to improve the visual quality and avoid disturbing artifacts. So it would be great to have some sort of automated method that would predict the quality and help us narrow down on good design decisions. And this is especially important for AR, where the added complexity of the additive background and all the details of the optics and so on make it more complex than traditional displays. So the open question then becomes, is AR quality that different from traditional displays? And the workflow might look something like this. We might build a testbed for optical see-through AR, collect subjective data, simulate the perceived image and video of both the virtual and background contents, and then predict the quality with conventional quality metrics for normal displays. Then if the predictions are very good, we could simply use existing metrics to predict AR quality. But if the predictions are not great, we might need to study visual perception for AR and then establish a specialized augmented reality quality metric. And this first phase shown here is exactly what we want to talk about today. So the testbed that we used for our experiment is called a haploscope and is shown here on the left in the photograph. And in the schematic on the right, you see the displays that form on the left and the right the virtual plane, and the background display forms the background plane. And they're observed by the user study participant who is in a chin rest through the beam splitters. It's a kind of glass where part of the light gets reflected and part gets transmitted. So they might see through the beam splitter something like this. There is a translucent version of the virtual content overlaid over the background. In this specific case, the field of view was 46 by 26 visual degrees, and the angular resolution was about 44 pixels per degree, which is in line with commercially available augmented reality headsets like the HoloLens. We used 6 different types of contents for our study that included things like text and apps, rendered content, real-world content, and person. And we also used 3 different kinds of background textures, including the overlapping circles called dead leaves, 1/f noise, or just a flat background, and each one presented at one of 2 luminance levels, either 100 or 10 candela per meter square, which represent bright and dark indoor conditions respectively. For each piece of pristine content, which we're going to call the reference here, we used one of 6 distortions to study. These included things like blur, color fringes, or contrast loss. These could be due, say, to the optics of the display. Also things like dither, which could be due to the graphics pipeline. Light source non-uniformity could be due to imperfect calibration of an LED panel, or waveguide non-uniformity is specific to the combiner called the waveguide used in these types of displays. All in all, we had 432 experimental conditions consisting of 6 different videos, 6 distortions, each one presented at 2 levels of magnitude, and 6 different backgrounds between 3 patterns and 2 luminances. Our study consisted of 55 participants and in total collected over 11,000 pairwise comparisons. The first part of the study looked like this. Participants compared a pristine reference overlaid over a background with 2 versions of the distorted content on the same background, and they had to select which version of the distorted tests was closer to the reference, or which one had fewer artifacts, in other words. In the second part of the experiment, we wanted to have comparisons across backgrounds as well. So in this case, we compared test and reference pairs, where each pair had the same background, but they were different between the pairs. In order to run the study, we used the ASAP active sampling library to reduce the number of comparisons needed to a feasible amount, and we used the pwcomp library to scale the 2AFC data into just objectionable difference units. This is a very convenient unit for perception that basically measures the distance between the reference and the different distortions, as shown on the left. And it's also convenient because the JOD values can be converted to a percentage preference using the transducer on the right. Now, to look at some results, the first key result that we found is that presenting content in AR significantly changed the visibility of the artifacts. We were able to conveniently compare our results to the previous study that we ran called XR-David, shown there on the right, the XR-David results on the x-axis, and on the y-axis, the 6 different versions from this new study, one for each different background. And you can see the big vertical spread in the results, meaning that the background had a significant effect on the visibility of the artifact overall. However, surprisingly, the second key result is that there wasn't a clear winner. The different background luminances and patterns had mixed impact on visibility, and the median distortion magnitude was similar, although we would have expected maybe, for example, darker or less textured backgrounds to have less of an effect. Finally, we proceed to the evaluation of the results using different metrics. We take the reference and test video, put it through a display model to simulate the conditions under which the experiment was conducted. We do the same thing for the background image with its respective display, and then we used a blending algorithm to combine the background and foreground for the combined augmented reality preset. We run that through image and video quality metrics to obtain the predicted quality and compare that against the subjective quality we got in the study. But the question is, what kind of blending should we be using here? So we've explored every type of blending that we could think of under reasonable circumstances. The simplest type of blending would be simply discarding the background and pretending it isn't there. The second simplest would be to discard the background pattern and just assume that it's raising the black level of the image. Following that, we could use a pinhole camera model to simply superimpose the images. Getting a little more complex, we could use an optically plausible defocus blur that is obtained by applying a PSF with the correct dioptric difference between background and foreground and simulating the pupil diameter of the user based on the luminance of the content. We could also take into account that the user has 2 eyes and that there's a diplopic difference. In other words, there's a shift when you're focusing on the front plane, and that doubled up image would be simulated as well. And finally, the model that combines everything, the defocus blur and the diploptic condition. Now here are the results of the evaluation of the metrics with these different blending models. We tested 15 state-of-the-art image and video metrics, and here we provide the 5 best performing ones. The first thing to notice here is that the cases where no background was used, shown in dark blue, showed the lowest correlation coefficient results, and here we show the rank order correlation coefficient. Here's an example of the best performing metric shown without background. And as you can see on the right, the metric prediction on the x-axis and the subjective score on the y-axis, if you discard the background, the correlation isn't very good. However, if you use the best performing correlation, which surprisingly is the average luminance model, it does improve the results somewhat, although clearly there's still improvements to be made. So, to conclude the result evaluation here, the correlations aren't great. The Sirach that we get is 0.76 in the best case compared to the traditional version of the dataset where we got 0.87. So the drop in quality for these metrics is significant. And surprisingly, the average luminance case showed the highest correlation among all the blending strategies, even though it is one of the simplest ones. So in summary, we took a first step towards building accurate metrics for augmented reality displays. We created the first video quality dataset for AR. We tested strategies for blending AR display and background content. And we tested many image and video quality metrics on our dataset. The key takeaways here are that AR quality is different from traditional display and metrics need to be adapted for it. And also that background features may be discounted more than what would be expected from optical simulation, although there's more work to be done on that. I'd also forward you here to our dataset, which is available on our project page, and you can reach it by following this QR code. Thank you for listening. This was AR David at SIGGRAPH Asia 2024.